M23 movement controls the Rubaya mining site. The Rubaya mining site accounts for 15% of the total world supply of cobalt. Regime changes in Congo, especially in relation to armed conflicts, mostly have had origins in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Hello everyone, we're back with Sitati Wasilwa, a Kenya-based geopolitical analyst, expert in African affairs. We're going to be talking about the M23 and the DRC conflict right now that's going on. It's a very big topic, particularly in Africa, and it's getting a lot of coverage. So, Sitati, thanks for being with us. How are you today? How's everything on your end?
Thank you, Mikhail. I'm doing well, and it's always a pleasure to have these conversations with you.
Yeah, so what's going on with the M23? What's the M23? What's going on in the DRC? Explain to the broader audience what's going on there. Why is it important?
Yes, the M23 movement is simply a rebel group whose origins or whose concentration is in the eastern part of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So the eastern part of the Congo in this context technically refers to the provinces of North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri. But as we speak at this time, the M23 is largely active in the broader Kivu region, that is South Kivu and North Kivu, where it controls several cities, including Goma, which is the capital of North Kivu province.
And that's on the border with Rwanda, is it?
Yes, that's just near the border with Rwanda. And then South Kivu, we have Bukavu, where the rebels also control it, and a host of other towns, as well as territories, mining sites, and such kind of areas. And it is also important to mention that this is not the first time that the M23 is active. This is a movement which is traced back to, around 2012. It was pretty much active at that time. It went under a little bit, and then I think it's also important to mention the fact that despite the existence of M23 for maybe a decade and a half, it's critical to remember that all these issues in relation to the conflict in the eastern part of the Congo have origins in the 1994 genocide in Rwanda. So it's a hot pot of geopolitical issues as far as the Great Lakes region is concerned, and DRC and Rwanda in this case. So basically, the M23 is more or less a proxy group, which Rwanda, based on the existing evidence, including by the United Nations, multiple reports by the UN, it's supported by, Rwanda, and pretty much active in that part of the Congo, Mikhail.
Yeah, so on that side, that area of Congo has a lot of natural resources. If we remember, was it Cabinda back in the 1960s? Even Che Guevara went there, and there were uprisings there from time to time, way back then. Is this the same area, or is that a different area? Because there's also, from what I recall, I think in the 1960s, 70s as well, there were some uprisings there. I think in the 1980s even. Was that for control of the minerals, or was it mainly just politically motivated? What can you say about the history of this?
Yeah, just to set the record straight, Cabinda, which you mentioned, is pretty much an enclave, and almost a semi-autonomous region in Angola, somewhere in Angola. Of course, Angola and the DRC, they share quite a long border, and also parts of Angola. If you go back to the ancient times, the Congo Empire, the Great Congo Empire, stretched across, parts of the DRC, present-day DRC, to parts of Angola, parts of Gabon, and Central African Republic. It was a vast empire. But in this case, the the case of the conflict in the eastern part of the Congo, the Kivu region, insurgencies in that part of the DRC, the Kivu region. Earlier on, I mentioned about 1994, the genocide. Later on, I'll come to that. But even in the 1960s, there were insurgencies in various parts of the DRC. And these were linked to, different groups that were attempting to fight, wrestle for political power because of different motivational factors. So in the case of the Kivu region, what essentially happened at that time is the people of that part of the Congo felt, excluded from the government, and Congo has never really known any sort of peace and stability. Forget about the 66 years that Congo has been independent, but go back to the time when Congo was declared a colony, could be 1907 or 1908, and further back when King Leopold II, declared, declared Congo technically. He colonized it and declared it as part of his private property.
Personal property. Yeah.
Yes, in 1885. So basically 1885 to 2026, we are referring to 141 years when Congo basically has not really had meaningful stability, peace, and prosperity, except for maybe 5 to almost 8 years in the 1970s. But these other years, 130 years of turmoil, Now, I think it's critical to mention that drawing from the 1960s, when there were insurgencies in the Kivu region and other parts of the Congo, technically, down to 1994, most of these issues, governance-related issues, had not been resolved. So what happens? Paul Kagame starts, a rebellion in Rwanda, tries to take over political power in Rwanda, which he succeeded anyway and took over power. And then he drove away the extremists on the opposite side, whom he was fighting against, the Hutus. He drove them, and they went to the eastern part of the Congo. So Paul Kagame thought that if we don't go to the eastern part of the Congo and weaken these extremists, these guys could have the capabilities of regrouping. And remember that time, Mobutu Sese Seko was the president of the DRC, and he was supporting these Hutu extremists. So you can imagine with Mobutu's support, and if Kagame did not go into the eastern part of the Congo, then there was a very high possibility that these Hutus would go back into Rwanda and try to usurp power. So he went into the eastern part of the Congo, formed alliances with some long-time rebel leaders, in this case, Laurent Desire Kabila, and then the conflicts since then, since 1994, have never really ended in that part of the world. So that's technically the historical context of all these issues.
Yeah. So to get this correct, I remember after 1994 genocide against the Tutsis, the Hutus, they did cross the border into Kivu, right? Tens of thousands crossed the border into Kivu. But there were also Tutsis that did cross as well. But Tutsis also were living in that area as well. So why did the Hutus cross the border into the Kivu area? Were they, let's say, exiled? Were they pushed out by Paul Kagame, who had taken power in the late 1990s?
Yes. Just to answer in the affirmative, absolutely correct. What pushed the Hutus into the eastern part of the Congo, the Kivu region? It was all about, or rather it was linked to, Kagame's takeover of power. So basically all those extremists who, had taken over, who had been in power in Rwanda technically, were flushed out and sent or driven, or rather sought exile in the
He's Tutsi. Sorry, Paul Kagame, is he ethnic Tutsi?
Yeah, Kagame is ethnic
Okay.
Tutsi. So you can see all these ethnic alliances and frictions that took place. So in fact, when you look at the ethnic composition of the population of the eastern part of the Congo, especially in Kivu, a significant number of those residents, even before the genocide in 1994, I mean, you had these Tutsis who basically migrated from Rwanda and also Burundi and went into Congo. So even up to this date, as much as these immigration patterns or these Tutsi migrants have been moving from, let's say, Rwanda or Burundi into Congo, they are still not accepted as truly Congolese. So, but all these outcomes of colonial borders. So, Belgium when it took over the Congo, later on Germany took over those are the smaller territories in the region. So all these issues also date back to the effects of colonialism as well.
Yeah. So then you have the M23, it was founded, I think you mentioned, if I recall, in 2012, around there, by former military members of the former Zairian military, I believe, or DRC military, if I'm not mistaken. They created, let's say, the M23, the armed group. Their narrative, or what they say, is they created it to protect the locals, and that's kind of like what they're officially saying now. It's that they're protecting the locals as well from attacks, from their rights and everything, because they feel excluded. How is this viewed from Kinshasa? What does the central Congolese government say about this? Military wise? There are clashes that go on, but there's no direct conflict between them right now, is there? House to house fighting, for example. What's the narrative of the M23, and what's the role of the Congolese central government in this conflict right now?
Yeah, to begin with, I think it's could be important to elaborate the fact that the guys who technically formed the M23, you had obviously some dissidents from the Congolese military, whose origins, ethnic origins, are traced to the eastern part of the Congo. But all along until let's say 2012 or 2013, the previous or the past insurgencies, the Great Congo War in the 1990s, up until 1998, 2001 to 2003, you had even Rwandan military officers who took over the leadership of those various rebel movements, which, it's just the name has been changing, but the substance is still the same.
Rwandan military officers,
Yeah,
they were implicated in it then.
absolutely. And even at this time, if you make reference to various reports published by the United Nations, uh, around 30,000, M23 rebel fighters are currently deployed, in the Kivu region. But at the same time, you also have around 18,000 Rwandan soldiers who have been deployed in the Kivu region, fighting alongside these rebels, attempting to achieve whatever military, political, and economic objectives that they're pursuing, but to go back a little bit to part of your question, Kinshasa's perspective in all these issues. First of all, Kinshasa is highly apprehensive, given the past memories of what really occurred or arose from, the past insurgencies. Remember that the previous insurgencies that originated in the eastern part of the Congo ultimately led to regime changes. In this
Yeah.
case, the regime change that occurred in 1997 when Laurent Desire Kabila took over the president, ousting Mobutu Sese Seko, it originated in the eastern part of the Congo, you know. from the Rwandan genocide, the Hutus have been, the extremist Hutus have been flushed to the eastern part of the Congo. Kagame chases after them, chasing after them, he forms these proxy armed groups. Forming the proxy armed groups, then they decide, okay, it's not enough to just concentrate on the eastern part of the Congo. Let's march to Kinshasa and take over power. So that happened. Of course, at that time, Mobutu Sese Seko, his power was already weakened. He was not in total control and command of the government and the state. The military was in disarray. The country was broke.
You also had, I think, Angolan troops intervening there, and if I'm not mistaken, Tanzanian troops on the border at least. Some areas were also intervened by neighboring countries in those very years, just during the fall of Mobutu.
Absolutely. So he had lost total control of the state, technically with the government apparatus, and he was vulnerable. So Laurent Desire Kabila marched with these rebel fighters all the way from the eastern part of the Congo, and they took over power. Now, the second instance where we had a regime change originating from the eastern part of the Congo was when Laurent Desire Kabila himself was assassinated. That was in January 2001. So technically, the factors or the issues that led to his assassination originated from the fact that he completely refused to approve some of the political and military demands by the Rwandan government. I think that's very, very important to insist.
Mm-hmm.
That when Kabila was fighting, Laurent Kabila was fighting, Rwanda gave him support, Uganda also gave him support. And then he decided that, Rwanda demanded that in his government, the military should have, the high-ranking officers in the military should be the Rwandans, and even in his government, Rwandan, nationals were also part of his government. So happened essentially. It got to a point that he demanded. He thought maybe these guys are making some really crazy demands and decided, it's high time probably they go back to their country. So he generally expelled them from the political institutions of the country and the military apparatus. So Rwanda saw it fit that we cannot take our losses and move out in shame. We have to do something. So technically, that's what happened. So whoever succeeded Laurent Kabila was his son. That time, I believe he was around 28 years. He was Africa's youngest head of state and government at that time. So he was in power technically until 2016, or rather 2018. So the point is this. Kinshasa is very, very apprehensive of what might come out of this insurgency by the M23 in the Kivu region. And to build a stronger context of this, the immediate former president, Joseph Kabila, the son of Laurent Kabila, at this time, in fact, for around the last 2 years, he has been making sentiments that link him directly to the M23. In fact, must have been 2 or 3 days ago, a report by the United Nations indicated that the M23 is trying to change its name and is trying now to formally incorporate Joseph Kabila into its leadership. So politics and the geopolitics at,
is it trying to institutionalize itself in a sense? Not formally, but kind of, because I know in Latin America during the 1980s, you had guerrilla groups as well that, one of them in El Salvador, for example, during the Salvadoran Civil War, they eventually institutionalized and they became a political party, for example. Same with Nicaragua as well. I wonder if M23 is trying the same thing, trying to kind of institutionalize themselves, but they have to be accepted by the other side, obviously. And Nicaragua was kind of different because there was a general revolution. They won the civil war, the revolution, basically. And in El Salvador, there was a general change as well, and in a truce, and they accepted the guerrillas as an institutionalized political party. I wonder if that's the case, and if M23 is trying to go down that path.
Well, certainly, drawing from the history of armed groups which existed before the M23, which, as I've mentioned, it's just the name that has changed. But to me, the objectives are still pretty much the same, right? So at the end of it all, I am almost certain that the M23 has its aims of seeking to capture power in the Congo. That's my perspective. Why? First, as I've mentioned, Joseph Kabila, the immediate former president, has been closely associating with this particular group over the last few years. If you also go back a little bit, I mean, the current leader of this movement, the last time there were elections in the DRC, he was actually the head of the Electoral Commission. Okay? So once he did not agree with the current president, Felix Tshisekedi, then he retreated back and sought refuge in the M23 movement. Another important factor to mention, or issue rather, is the fact that M23, in essence, I mean, when you look at the territories that they basically control in North Kivu and South Kivu, I mean, they have even institutionalized some sort of, administrative structures to administer, to control, levy taxes, ensure that the healthcare systems are functioning, schools. So what are they demonstrating? That either they want to completely lock out, they want to lock out and maybe create a semi-autonomous sort of a state in the Kivu region, or they intend to march all the way to Kinshasa. And that's why the President Felix Tshisekedi, quite concerned, ending up suggesting that perhaps it's high time we seek to postpone the December 2028 elections, or even extend his term limit by revising the constitution and allowing that him as the president can at least have a third term in office.
Yeah. So we're actually out of time, unfortunately. This topic requires several of these videos. It's a really big topic. There's a lot to talk about, and Sitati, expert in this whole field, so he has a lot to share with us. Just want to confirm with the audience, we had Sitati Wasilwa, a Kenyan-based geopolitical analyst specializing in African affairs, with us. If you like this type of video, give it a like, give it a share. The most important one, ask some questions below. Ask your questions below. Any questions, any comments you have, would be more than happy to have you engaged in this to see what your thoughts are. Sitati, thanks again for being with us.
Thank you, Mikhail.